The silence. That's what hit us first. Not the playful quiet of hide and seek, but this deep, echoing silence that just swallowed the whole forest. 1 minute, our 7-year-old Leo was right there, his laughter bright, weaving through the trees, his red jacket a flash of color. The next, nothing. Just the rustle of leaves in a rising wind, a sound that seemed to mock the terror rising in us. It's a chilling, gut-wrenching fear, the kind that twists you up inside, whispering your worst nightmares into reality. The world didn't just flip upside down. It shattered. That moment, that awful, stomach-dropping moment, you realize your child is truly gone, swallowed by the vast, uncaring wilderness. That's something that burns itself into your memory forever. It started as one of those perfect family days, you know, the kind you try to bottle up. The late autumn sun was low but warm, dappling the forest floor as we started on our favorite trail in the Blackwood Creek National Forest. Miles of wild country, a place we'd always loved, full of adventure and smiles. Leo, always the little explorer, was fascinated by everything. Squirrels darting around, the moss on the old oaks, the sunlight filtering through the trees like in a cathedral. He'd found a sturdy branch, his magic staff, and was leading the way, making up some grand story about knights and dragons. Mark, my husband, and I were walking a bit behind, holding hands, enjoying the comfortable quiet, broken only by Leo's shouts and questions. We'd packed a picnic, sandwiches, juice boxes, and Leo's favorite chocolate chip cookies, planning to stop at our usual spot by the Whispering Falls. It was a path we knew like the back of our hand. We'd walked it a dozen times. Maybe we got too comfortable, too complacent. The forest was huge, yeah, but it was our forest, a place for happy memories. Not for this. Leo was just up ahead, maybe 20 yards, chattering about some weird mushroom he'd spotted. He darted off the path just a few feet towards a big, gnarled oak. "Dad, Mom, come see. It looks like a grumpy old face." His voice was so clear, so excited. Mark chuckled. "All right, Captain, but don't wander off." I remember smiling, pulling out my phone to take a picture, the sun catching the gold in his hair. That was the last time I saw him so clearly. We kept walking, figuring he'd pop back out any second, mushroom in hand. The path curved a little. It was still, with the usual peaceful forest sounds, birds, the distant creek. But then, a few more steps, and the silence started. The silence where his voice should have been. "Leo," Mark called out, his voice still light, that casual parent check-in. No answer. "Leo, buddy, where are you?" A bit louder. Still nothing. Just the wind in the pines. My heart did a little flip. "He's probably just trying to scare us," I said, mostly trying to convince myself. But Mark wasn't smiling anymore. He was scanning the trees, his brow furrowed. "Leo, this isn't funny." His voice was sharper now, that edge of unease creeping in. We started walking faster, calling his name over and over. Each time he didn't answer, a bit more of our calm just crumbled. The forest, our friendly spot just moments ago, started to feel strange, the shadows deeper, the trees closing in. The grumpy old face oak was there, but Leo wasn't. His magic staff was lying right at its roots. That's when the first real stab of panic, cold and sharp, hit me. That abandoned staff, it was like a scream in the silence. He never went anywhere without his latest treasure. The forest floor, all thick with fallen leaves, gave us nothing. No scuffed earth, no broken twigs to show where he went. It was like the woods just inhaled him. We spread out, our calls getting more frantic, desperate. "Leo! Leo! Can you hear me?" My voice cracked, the sound just vanishing into the trees. Mark was a few yards away, his face pale, his eyes wide with the same fear I felt. Minutes felt like hours. Every rustle, every snap of a twig made my heart jump with hope, only for it to crash again with the silence. The sun, so cheerful before, now seemed to be sinking way too fast, casting these long, creepy shadows that twisted everything familiar. "He couldn't have gone far," Mark said, his voice tight, trying to hold on to some logic that our fear was quickly eating away. But far, in these woods? That was a terrifying thought. Off the main path, it was all uneven ground, thick bushes, and animal trails that could easily confuse a little boy. I remembered the ranger's warning on the board at the trailhead. Stick to marked trails. The wilderness is unpredictable. Words we'd glanced at, sure, but never thought applied to us, not on a casual family hike. Now, they were like a condemnation. The chilling realization that Leo wasn't just hiding, that he wasn't playing a game, started to sink in. He was lost, really lost. And with that certainty came this horrible wave of anguish, a sickening mix of fear, guilt, and this desperate, clawing need to find him. My world just narrowed to one thing. My child was alone, vulnerable, somewhere in this huge, darkening wilderness. The nightmare had started. I looked at Mark, his face a mask of pain, and we didn't need to say a word. Our son was gone. Right after that, it was all just a blur of frantic, disorganized searching. We went back and forth around that oak tree, our voices raw from shouting Leo's name. Every shadow seemed to taunt us, every rustling leaf a false hope. The forest, once so comforting, had turned into this terrifying maze. The sheer size of it, the endless trees like silent, uncaring guards, was just overwhelming. Guilt started eating at me. How could I have let him out of my sight, even for a second? That what-if loop started playing in my head, a constant soundtrack to the growing dread. Mark, always the more practical one, tried to get us organized. "We need to call for help, now." His voice was strained, but firm. Cell service was awful, of course, just when we desperately needed it. After several agonizing minutes of dropped calls and weak signals, we finally got through to emergency services. The dispatcher's calm, professional voice felt so out of place with the chaos inside me, giving our location, Leo's description: 7 years old, red jacket, blonde hair, blue eyes, last seen, when? An hour ago? It felt like an eternity. It was like reciting the details of a nightmare I couldn't wake from. Waiting for the first responders was torture. Every minute felt like an hour, filled with our own worst fears. We kept searching, but our efforts were getting more and more haphazard, just driven by pure, raw instinct. I kept picturing Leo, alone, scared. Was he cold? Was he hurt? The what-ifs just multiplied, each one more terrifying. We'd idly read somewhere that if kids get lost, they should hug a tree and stay put. Oh God, I prayed Leo would remember that some instinct would tell him to do it. As dusk started to turn the sky those bruised purple and gray colors, the first search and rescue team members arrived. Seeing them, all uniformed and equipped, brought this weird mix of relief and a deeper, colder wave of fear. Relief because we weren't alone anymore, professionals were here. Fear because their arrival just confirmed how serious this was. This wasn't just a kid wandering off for a minute. This was a full-blown crisis. They set up a command post near the trailhead. More people arrived: local police, volunteer firefighters, trackers with these grim, determined faces. A park ranger, a woman named Maria, with kind eyes but a no-nonsense way about her, became our main contact. She asked us questions, her voice gentle but firm, trying to piece together Leo's habits, his personality, anything that might help. Was he afraid of the dark? Would he try to find his way back? Or would he hide? Every question was like a fresh stab of guilt. The forest changed as it got dark. Familiar trees turned into grotesque shapes, their branches like grasping claws. The night sounds, usually so peaceful, now sounded menacing. An owl hooting, things rustling in the undergrowth. The temperature dropped and this cold, damp chill got into our bones, a physical sign of the fear gripping us. They brought us blankets, hot coffee, but nothing could touch that icy dread. The search teams spread out, their powerful flashlights cutting through the blackness. They started grid searches, voices calling Leo's name, echoing in the trees. We heard dogs barking in the distance, search dogs, their sharp senses a new fragile hope. We were asked to stay at the command post, to be available for questions, to not get in the way. It was the hardest thing, just sitting there, helpless, while other people looked for our son. Every part of me wanted to be out there, searching, screaming his name. Hours crawled by. Every update, or lack of one, was fresh torment. They found a candy wrapper, not his brand. A small footprint, too big. False leads, each one a tiny spark of hope snuffed out, plunging us deeper into despair. It was an emotional roller coaster. One minute, I'd feel this surge of desperate hope clinging to any possibility. The next, the crushing weight of fear, horrible images of what might be. I kept replaying the day, going over every moment, every decision, torturing myself with what I could have, should have, done differently. Mark paced like a caged animal, his face etched with the same torment I felt. We just clung to each other, trying to find some strength in our shared terror. Maria, the ranger, was there a lot, her calm manner a small anchor in our storm. She explained their search strategies, how experienced her teams were. She mentioned some of the local volunteer trackers had this incredible knowledge of the woods, skills passed down for generations, which they combined with modern techniques. It was a small comfort, but it was something. Sometime late that night, a new fear crept in when they talked about the forest's other inhabitants. These woods weren't full of big predators like in some stories, but there were dangers. Coyotes, bears sometimes seen in the deeper parts, and the cold itself was a silent threat. The thought of Leo, alone and exposed to all that, it was almost unbearable. The evil animals from his playful stories earlier suddenly felt terrifyingly real. At one point they had us talk to Leo through a megaphone, our voices amplified, hoping he might hear us, hoping our familiar sounds would guide him or comfort him. "Leo, it's Mommy and Daddy. We're looking for you. Stay where you are if you can hear us. We love you so much." The words felt so small, so inadequate against the huge, silent darkness. Sleep was impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Leo's face, his smile, then his imagined fear. I felt Mark beside me, trembling slightly, fighting his own silent battle. We were united in our agony, this terrible, isolating bond. People say your world turns upside down, and it's true. Ours hadn't just been shaken, it had been shattered, and we were lost in the pieces. The first hint of dawn brought no relief, just a clearer view of how huge the task ahead was. The forest seemed even larger, more impenetrable in the gray morning light. More volunteers arrived, their fresh energy a stark contrast to our bone-deep exhaustion. Local people, their faces full of concern, brought food and water for the searchers, a silent offering of support that touched us deeply. It was a reminder of the good in people, a small light in our overwhelming darkness. Then, a flicker of something. One of the trackers, an older man with weathered hands and eyes that seemed to see everything, found something off a little-used animal trail, deeper into the woods than we'd dared to go in our initial panic. A small piece of red fabric snagged on a thorny bush. My breath caught. It was the same color as Leo's jacket. Hope, sharp and painful, shot through me. It could be anything, I told myself. Don't get carried away. But it was the first real sign, the first clue they might be on the right path. The tracker explained that lost children, especially younger ones, sometimes wander, often following things like creeks or game trails. But sometimes they just get disoriented and move erratically. Others, he said, instinctively find a place to shelter, to hide. That hug-a-tree advice isn't just a catchy phrase. It's based on survival psychology. Staying in one place makes you easier to find. Our Leo was an active kid, an explorer. Would he wander, or would he stay put? Finding the fabric got the search teams fired up. They focused their efforts in that new area, a denser, more rugged part of the forest, with steep ravines and thicker undergrowth. The terrain was tough, slowing them down. The hours ticked by, each one a heavy weight on our hearts. The waiting was a special kind of torture, swinging between hope and despair. We tried to stay strong for Leo, for each other, but the strain was immense. This whole experience, this nightmare we were living through, it's something no parent should ever face. The fear, the helplessness, the desperate hope, it's an emotional ringer. If our story touches you, if you've ever felt that awful fear for someone you love, Or if you just believe in the power of community and hope when things are darkest, please think about subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us share these stories, connect with others, and remind everyone that even in the worst moments, we're not alone. Hit that notification bell too, so you don't miss how Leo's story ends and others like it. That piece of red fabric changed everything for the search. It was tiny, but it was something to go on. The teams, a mix of pros and dedicated volunteers, carefully combed the area, but the terrain was getting worse. Steep hills, thick bushes, loose rocks making every step dangerous. I could only imagine Leo, small and alone, trying to get through that. The thought sent fresh shivers of fear down my spine. Maria, the ranger, kept us updated as much as she could, but there wasn't much news. "They're following a faint trail," she'd say, or "the dogs have a scent, but it comes and goes." We hung on every word, turning it over in our minds, desperate for real hope. The emotional turmoil was non-stop. One minute I'd be sure they were about to find him, picturing his tired little face, the relief washing over us. The next, my mind would conjure up terrible images. Him cold, hungry, or worse. Guilt was always there, whispering awful questions. Why that trail? Why didn't I watch him closer? Why wasn't I a better mom? I knew Mark was fighting his own demons. We'd catch each other's eye, and the shared pain was this silent, heavy thing between us. The sun climbed higher, surprisingly strong for late autumn. We learned the searchers were trying everything. Grid searches, tracking dogs, even thermal imaging where the trees weren't too thick, though the dense forest often made it useless. They kept shouting Leo's name, their calls echoing, hoping for any response, any sound. News crews started showing up, their vans parked a little way off, but their presence just made the whole thing feel even more surreal. We said no to interviews. We just wanted to focus all our energy, all our thoughts, on Leo. The community support, though, that was a lifeline. Hot meals, endless coffee, quiet words of encouragement from strangers. It helped soothe our raw nerves. Mid-afternoon, another call came over Maria's radio. My heart leapt into my throat. A search team had found something else. A small, muddy sneaker tucked beside a big mossy boulder near a steep, wooded slope. Maria showed it to us. My hand flew to my mouth, a sob escaping. It was Leo's, no doubt. His favorite blue sneakers with the worn laces. The spot was even deeper in the woods, further from the trail than we could have imagined. How did he get so far? And why was his shoe off? Did he lose it? Take it off? The questions just swirled, each one making us more anxious. Finding the shoe narrowed the search area, which was good. But it also painted a more worrying picture. If he was shoeless, his little feet would be so vulnerable on that rough ground and to the cold. And that area was known for sudden drops and hidden crevices. The lead tracker, Silas, the old man who'd found the fabric, talked with Maria. He thought Leo might have looked for shelter, maybe tried to climb something to see better or to get away from the damp forest floor as night came on. He said lost and scared kids often look for a place that feels safe, even if it's a bit risky. The idea of him being stuck, maybe hurt from a fall, was a new and terrifying thought. The search became incredibly intense. Teams focused on the slopes above where the shoe was found, checking every tree, every rock formation. That hug a tree advice for lost kids echoed in my head again. What if he'd actually tried to climb one for safety? The hours that followed were the absolute worst. The sun started to set again, painting the sky with these fiery oranges and reds, a beautiful sight that felt like a cruel joke. Another night was coming. The thought of Leo spending a second night alone in the wilderness, possibly hurt, shoeless, it was a torment beyond words. We prayed, just a desperate stream of pleas to anyone or anything that might be listening. I clutched Mark's hand so tightly my knuckles were white. His grip was just as fierce. Darkness fell, fast and total. The search went on under harsh lights, the forest now an eerie alien place of stark shadows and lit-up patches. The temperature plummeted. We wrapped the thin emergency blankets tighter, but the cold was inside us, a chill that reached our souls. Every so often a shout would echo, "Leo," followed by that deafening silence that was our constant enemy, It must have been close to midnight. We were so exhausted, our bodies heavy, our minds foggy, but adrenaline kept us wired, unable to rest. Maria came over, her face hard to read in the dim light of the command post. My heart hammered. We think we might have something," she said, her voice low. "One of the climbing teams rappelling down a steep section near where they found the shoe. They've spotted something in a tall pine, about 40 feet up. It's a splash of red." A splash of red, Leo's jacket, 40 feet up a pine tree. The words just hung there, unbelievable, terrifying, hopeful. How? Why? But those questions could wait. Now, there was only one thought. Leo. The next hour was a blur of controlled activity and unbearable tension. Maria quickly got the specialized tree rescue unit, who'd been on standby. Getting to that spot was tough even for them. It was off-trail, on a steep, unstable slope and pitch dark. We weren't allowed to go. They said it was too dangerous for us, especially how we were feeling. So we waited, every second stretching into forever, clinging to this fragile, terrifying bit of hope. Mark and I huddled together, whispering prayers, shaking uncontrollably, partly from cold, partly from the sheer emotional overload. We could hear bits of radio chatter, clipped and professional, but to us, each word was a lifeline. Ascending now. Visual confirmation. Subject is a child. He appears to be lodged in a fork of the branches. No visible movement, but we can't assess condition from here. No visible movement. Those words hit me like a punch. I gasped, a wave of sickness washing over me. Mark held me tighter, his own face a mask of pain. Maria put a reassuring hand on my arm. "It doesn't necessarily mean anything, Sarah. He could be asleep or just very still. Try to stay positive." But positivity felt impossible. They talked about the technical bits of the tree rescue in hushed tones around the command post. They had to check if the tree was stable, see how he was positioned, figure out the safest way to reach him. Ladders wouldn't work on that slope. A climber would have to go up, secure Leo, then bring him down. Every detail, every potential problem, just cranked up our fear. Then, after what felt like a lifetime packed into minutes, a new voice on the radio, breathless but clear. It was the lead climber. "I have him. He's conscious, weak but conscious. He's very cold, very scared, but he's alive." The word just cut through the fog of fear and exhaustion. A sob, raw and powerful, tore out of me. Mark let out this guttural cry, burying his face in my shoulder. Tears streamed down our faces, hot and unstoppable. Tears of relief, of terror finally backing off, of an emotion so huge it had no name. He was alive. Our Leo was alive. The climber's voice went on. "He's wedged in pretty tight. Looks like he climbed up, maybe got scared or tired and couldn't get down. He's remarkably calm considering. Smart kid. He definitely hugged that tree." The descent was slow, agonizingly careful. They told us they were securing Leo into a special harness to keep him safe for the rappel down. Each update was a tiny, precious gift. Preparing for descent. Moving slowly, almost at the base of the tree. Finally, Maria turned to us, her own eyes shining. "They're bringing him out to the access point. It'll take a little while to get him here. He'll need immediate medical attention, but they say he's a fighter." Waiting for him to arrive at the command post, even though it was shorter than all those hours of not knowing, was still filled with this nervous energy that just buzzed through us. Paramedics were ready, a stretcher waiting, and then, through the trees, flashlights bobbing, they came, a group of rescuers, and in the arms of one, a small bundled-up figure. My breath caught. Mark and I surged forward, but Maria gently held us back. "Let the medics check him first," she urged. They laid him carefully on the stretcher. His face was pale, smudged with dirt, his lips a bit blue. His eyes were closed. For a terrifying second, that fear came rushing back, sharp and cold. But then his eyelids fluttered. He coughed, a small, weak sound, and his eyes opened, dazed, confused, searching. "Leo," I whispered, my voice trembling. His gaze found mine, a flicker of recognition. "Mommy?" His voice was a tiny raspy thread. "Yes, baby, it's Mommy. And Daddy's here too." Mark was beside me, his hand stroking Leo's hair, tears silently running down his cheeks. The paramedics were quick, checking his vitals, wrapping him in more thermal blankets, starting an IV. He was dehydrated, suffering from exposure, a few cuts and bruises, but miraculously, no serious injuries. They figured he'd climbed the tree, probably when it got dark the first night to get off the cold ground, or maybe he got scared by an animal. He'd managed to wedge himself into a pretty secure spot, but then, exhausted and scared, he couldn't get back down. He'd been up there for almost a full day, and a second night was falling. His red jacket, that splash of color, had saved him. As they got ready to take him to the hospital, they let us get closer. I leaned down, pressing my lips to his cold forehead. "Oh, Leo, we were so scared. We love you so much." He managed a weak smile. I hugged the tree, Mommy, like you said." My heart just squeezed. That small piece of advice, something we'd casually mentioned after watching a nature show months ago, he'd remembered it. He had saved himself by staying put, by making himself visible, even if it was in such an unexpected way. The ride to the hospital was a blur. Mark held Leo's small hand, murmuring reassurances. I sat beside them, just staring at our son, like I was afraid he might vanish again if I blinked. The relief was so huge it was almost painful, a heavy ache in my chest where the fear had been. At the hospital, doctors and nurses were all around, their professionalism so comforting. They confirmed he had hypothermia and was dehydrated, but his core temperature was slowly coming up. He was exhausted, but his spirit, they said, was strong. Leo slept for most of the next day, a deep, healing sleep. Mark and I never left his side, taking turns watching over him, our hands often finding each other, a silent, "We got through it." The terror had started to fade, replaced by this overwhelming gratitude for the searchers, the volunteers, the skill of the rescuers, and for our brave little boy. When Leo finally woke up properly, his eyes were clearer, a bit of his usual spark back. He was hungry, and even managed a small smile when we told him he could have all the chocolate chip cookies he wanted. He didn't talk much about his time in the woods at first, and we didn't push him. There'd be time for that. For now, it was enough to have him back, safe in our arms. The days that followed were about quietly readjusting. The world looked different, sharper, more precious. Ordinary moments like Leo's laughter, the warmth of his hand in mine, just tucking him into bed, they all felt so much more significant. We had walked through the deepest, darkest valley of fear and come out, blinking, into the light. The support from our community was incredible. Cards, gifts, messages of love and relief just poured in. We made sure to thank everyone involved in the search, from Ranger Maria and Silas the tracker, to all the countless volunteers who gave their time and energy. They were all heroes. Leo, slowly, started to share bits of his adventure. He'd gotten turned around following a butterfly, he said. Then he couldn't find the path. As it got dark, he remembered that advice to stay in one place, and he'd seen the big pine tree. It looked strong. He'd climbed it to feel safer, to see if he could spot us. He'd eaten a few wild berries he recognized from a nature book. Thankfully, the edible kind. He'd been so incredibly brave. He said the scariest part was the noises at night and being alone. But he'd talked to the stars, he told us, and imagined us looking for him. The experience changed us, no doubt. The forest, once a place of pure joy, now held a shadow of that fear. But it also held the memory of incredible courage, Leo's and the courage and kindness of so many strangers. We knew the emotional scars might take time to fade, for Leo and for us. We'd look into counseling, support for our family, to help us all process the trauma and make sure Leo felt secure and understood. Our nightmare had ended. Our child, trapped in the woods, was home. And as we held him close, we knew that the fear, though it might always be a faint echo, would eventually be drowned out by the immense, boundless gratitude for his safe return. The love for our child, that fierce, unwavering determination that kept us going through those terrible hours, that was the strongest force of all. What Leo went through and what we faced as parents is a reminder of how precious life is and how fast things can change. It's also a testament to how strong people can be and the incredible power of hope. If you've been through something tough or know someone who has, sharing your story can be a big part of healing, and it can help others feel less alone. We'd love for you to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and share this video. You never know who might need to hear a story of survival, hope, and the unbreakable bond of family. Life is slowly getting back to a new normal for us. Leo still loves the outdoors, though he stays a little closer now, his hand often finding ours. We're more vigilant maybe, but also so much more appreciative of every single moment. The woods are still there, vast and beautiful, a reminder of both our deepest fear and our greatest relief. We faced a parent's worst nightmare, and with the help of so many, we found our way back to the light, our family whole once more. Thanks for being with us on this journey.